Good evening to you, and thank you for tuning in to tonight's program. You are tuned in to Hope TV Newswatch, where you look and live. My name is Tiffany Waboy. I will be taking you through the bulletin for today. Do reach out to us with your comments, questions and feedback on our WhatsApp line, which is 0708 222 323. Our SMS line is 22232, and stay tuned for a great interview coming right up on debunking the Finance Bill of 2023, which will come later on in the bulletin. But to start us off, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition has maintained its calls for a vote against the Finance Bill of 2023. The coalition has now issued an ultimatum to the Kenya Kwanza government till midnight, threatening to suspend the bipartisan talks if their concerns are not addressed. Speaking during a special parliamentary group meeting chaired by Azimio leader Raila Odinga and National Assembly Minority Whip Opiyo Wandayi, the coalition asked the government to withdraw the Finance Bill in totality and reintroduce it in a manner that addresses the interests of Kenyans. Gloria Musimbi with more.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga on Tuesday chaired a special parliamentary group meeting to review the status of bipartisan talks and take a position on the Finance Bill 2023. The meeting that brought together MPs, the coalition leadership and the Azimio bipartisan talks representatives deliberated on three main issues, namely the organization of Azimio minority leaders, the Finance Bill 2023 and the status of the bipartisan talks. Azimio has now given the Kenya Kwanza government until midnight to address their concerns or have the bipartisan talks suspended.
Any other MPs who have defected to Kenya Kwanza, in essence, have to face by-elections in line with the Constitution of Kenya. Until all these are agreed upon, the joint bipartisan talks remain suspended. Kenya Kwanza has up to midnight today to comply.
While correlating the current economic siege to the 1980s, the coalition said they will oppose the Finance Bill 2023, terming the bill as backward and one that is meant to overtax Kenyans without giving them anything in return.
The bill must be withdrawn in totality and be reintroduced afresh in a manner that is sensitive to the plight of the poor Kenyans. Indeed, the Azimio MPs have resolved to sign a public pledge to oppose the bill, awaiting its withdrawal.
Meanwhile, Embakasi West Member of Parliament Mark Mwenje now takes over as Deputy Minority Whip of the National Assembly after Azimio ousted Sabina Chege from the position.
Azimio has today settled on the Honorable Mark Mwenje, the MP for Embakasi West, as the Deputy Minority Whip of the National Assembly.
Wandayi noted that the Kenya Kwanza had expressed willingness to write to the Electoral Commission IEBC to remind them of their constitutional mandate on the election servers.
To preserve the IEBC's presidential election servers, the Kenya Kwanza side has expressed willingness to co-author a letter to the IEBC reminding them to preserve the presidential election servers and the data contained therein.
Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Gloria Musimbi.
Apologies for that. Opiyo Wandayi is actually the minority leader and not minority whip as earlier stated. Now, the outgoing director of public prosecutions, that is DPP Nordin Haji, has appeared before Parliament where he was vetted for the Director General position at the National Intelligence Service. Haji, who faced the National Assembly Committee for Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations, stated that the NIS had provided timely information on the Shakahola saga, but the process was jeopardized when cult leader Paul Mackenzie was released on bail. Haji further defended himself on the withdrawal of high-profile cases which brought him under heat and claims that there was an abuse of processes in the cases brought before his office.
NIS did give timely intelligence that initially was actioned upon. And even as ODPP, we were able to prosecute some of these individuals, especially Mackenzie. However, when we went to court, he was given bail. Probably the argument is this bail that was given was not adequate. On the issue of corruption and insecurity, I think he was saying that I did little in taming corruption, and I beg to differ. I did a lot, as I had said earlier. It was during my tenure that the highest ever fined case was achieved during my tenure, and it is not the only one. There were about 4 cases that broke the ceiling in terms of the fines and the sentences that we were able to get as ODPP.
Elsewhere, the New Life International pastor Ezekiel Odero has continued to distance himself from claims suggesting his connection to Shakahola cult leader Paul Mackenzie. This even as the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has yet again found no link between the two pastors. Odero, who appeared at the DCI offices for questioning as was directed, was released within a short period after the detectives did not identify any connection to Mackenzie. His lawyers Adan Omari and Cliff Ombeta have continued to defend Odero as a law-abiding citizen, maintaining that his work in the church has nothing to do with the radicalization of members.
The petition be mentioned on a date we'll give you shortly for a status update on the investigations, and 2, that the petitioner considers amending the petition to reflect the current status of his cause of action. So either the petition is withdrawn in entirety or we get to hear it as amended. That's the way to go.
Katika mahakama ya Magistrates Court Nairobi tutakuwa pale sababu yule jamaa Safaricom manager legal alilazimishwa kufika mahakamani kesho kule Milimani Criminal Court aweze kujibu ni kwa nini hajapeana polisi zile stakabadhi ambazo polisi walizihitaji. Kwa hivyo pia kesho tutakuwa kotini pale jijini Nairobi. Kila kitu cha Pastor Ezekiel ni mali ya kanisa. Kwa hivyo yule anaemezea mate kuchukua mali ya kanisa, basi Pastor Ezekiel hana shida ila kusema Mwenyezi Mungu kisasi, yeye pastor hawezi. Serikali pengine kuna maabara mpya ambayo inaweza jua kama haya maji kweli yameombewa na katika yale maombezi nini kiko pale ndani. Pili, walichukua vitambaa vile vilivyoombewa wakaenda kuvifanyia uchunguzi. Tunatarajia kwamba leo watamuuliza pastor ama watatupa results za maji na vitambaa.
Evangelical Alliance of Kenya is calling for the enactment of a separate law to regulate churches and religious societies instead of placing them all under the Societies Act. According to the EAK Secretary General, Dr. Nelson Makanda, such a statute would ensure that religious bodies address issues affecting them directly and not through the registrar. Speaking after a meeting with EAK Siaya chapter members, Dr. Makanda acknowledged religious institutions as ambassadors of good news and contribute to the greater good of our community.
Churches are already regulated. There's no church in Kenya that exists without regulation. The church is registered under Register of Societies, and there's a law that regulates churches. But however, we desire as EAK that we have a separate statute so that then we are able to address issues that are unique to us. So that we move out from a statute that governs chamas, merry-go-rounds and things like that, and have a statute that regulates freedoms of worship. And we do think that that will be more enabling and more helpful statute and act of parliament. Church is a carrier of good news. And so the more church we have, the better we become as a society. And so as the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, we think that we need more churches. In fact, part of our mandate and core is to encourage our churches to plant churches where they don't exist. And so we want more churches in Kenya.
We are not part of what has happened in other places. We disassociate ourselves with those things as Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. They are not our members. And also we have also requested the government not to harass all church ministers because of the wrongdoings of individuals that maybe they can reach.
That brings us to our first short break for tonight's bulletin, but do stay tuned for the Finance Bill 2023. We will be debunking that with Collins Oluochu, is an advocate and economist. Do stay tuned.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live. Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Spotlight.
Do you feel like they are in a place where they can effect a Barack Obama moment?
When you hear the word of God and you hear Jesus is speaking.
Real talk on real issues.
You know the Bible says faith without works is dead.
The truth of the gospel that will survive the time is not a health and wealth gospel.
When there is time to harmonize and bring one composite amendment.
With idealistic, thought-provoking guests.
So people come to be serviced, to be encouraged, to be empowered.
When the storm is over, you desire the closeness you have with God.
Hosted by Reverend Edward Furi. This week on Testify.
I bought samaki na nikapika. I had the voice telling me don't eat the fish. But because nilikuwa na njaa, nikasema no, I'm taking. Nikakula samaki. Kumeza samaki ya pili, bone ika stuck hapa. Bone ili stuck hapa for 4 days. Yani situation imekuwa ile hard, una urinal attraction, acidity, bone nini, yani you feel like the world is ending. Nikatoka job. So kutoka job, hiyo flyover ya Bellevue. I don't know whether you know Bellevue. Nikasimama hapo kwa flyover ya Bellevue. Nimeshika chuma hivi. Nilikuwa nataka kujirusha chini.
Only on Hope TV. Look and live.
Welcome back to the program. Now, Nyeri residents and Kenyans at large have been urged to embrace the proposed 3% housing levy to kickstart their journey of owning a house. Speaking to Hope TV after the Sitam Nyeri Business Expo, Nyeri Deputy Governor David Mwangi said the 3% deduction from employees' income to contribute to the housing kitty is also a way of inculcating a savings culture in Kenyans. His sentiments were echoed by Nyeri Town Member of Parliament Duncan Madenge, who noted that development projects in the country can greatly be driven through the funds that are generated internally.
That 3%, at the end of the day, that money belongs to you. It is yours. Not that the county or the government wants 3% so that they can keep it. They want to save it for you at the end of the day. Because some of us, we are savers by default. We are not savers by choice. So you find sometimes it reaches a point that people have to be forced to save. So the 3% is yours. We want to keep it for you, but we will just give it to you. So if you take the house we are talking about, then it belongs to you, you pay the difference. If you don't want, then we refund you that money.
I'm encouraging us as Kenyans to be candid and completely honest with each other so that we can get to the point of balance. At the end of the day, we will only develop this country realistically on the basis of the finances that we can generate internally.
All right, and on the same breath, we get to that part of the interview where we debunk the finance bill of 2023. With us in studio is Collins Olwot, who is an advocate and economist who will help us to understand the provisions in the proposed finance bill of 2023. Welcome to the studio, Collins.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm pretty sure you've heard of what has been going on, especially on social media, about many people talking about the finance bill and its provisions and how it will ultimately impact Kenyans.
Yeah.
And first of all, considering the story we have just had right now about the housing levy, the 3% contribution, many Kenyans are now saying that that's irrelevant to them. Many people are not, what if they don't want to own a house? What would you say about that?
One, thank you so much for having me. Allow me to, before jumping into the 3% housing fund, to just give a background on the finance bill 2023. It's a bill that seeks to introduce taxes for various sectors of the government. Before reading the budget, the government sets to see how they raise revenue, and they normally do that through finance acts. So that is the introduction through the finance bill. There's been a lot of debate. Been a public debate on the issue of the finance bill 2023, and their attention has been drawn to specifically the 3% housing levy. But for me, it's looking at the whole bill holistically. Article 201 of the Constitution talks about public finance, and it says that public finance is supposed to be equitable and efficient. But if you look at the tenets, or rather what has been contained in the finance bill, it beats logic. But this is really a test for the National Assembly to see, because the Article 201 all through to 209 talks about, part of it talks about inclusivity of people, rather public participation, insofar as attaining the equality and equity is concerned and efficiency is concerned in the finance bill. So people have been called public sector, people have been called to give their views insofar as the finance bill is concerned. So it would be interesting to see what threshold does the National Assembly take with regards to considering the bill? Are they going to take the consideration, or rather the views of the people into consideration when they're going to be voting for the bill? Coming back to your question on the 3% housing levy, we are coming from a period where the government, or rather Kenyans, have been saddled with a lot of taxation. There's been an economic crisis. Yeah. And the government has introduced a 3% tax that they are going to tax employees, the public sector, together with employers and employees. Employers are going to make a contribution, same to the employees. But no one understands this, right from government. Because you see, matters to do with housing are supposed to be fronted by the National Housing Corporation. But who is fronting the idea of 3% housing levy? You hear the president talking about it. You hear leader of majority talking about it. You hear David Ndii, the economist, the people who sit in the Economic Council, tweeting about it, not talking about it. You hear the PS. So it has been fronted by the ministry as opposed to NHC. And to me, I think the housing levy is it's not a government idea. It's an idea by vendors. Rather, let me call, there are people who've owned this, they want to cash out of it, and then they've given it to the government. So the government is selling something that is not understanding. Why do I say so? There are civil servants, or people who are paying tax, employees, let me just say, employees who stay in Mandera. The government has said part of what they want to attain with the housing levy is to see to it that they give job opportunities and also to reduce the slums, to grant people affordable housing. It's a beautiful idea to give people affordable housing, but the way they are going through it is not realistic. So someone in Mandera who is going to be deducted 3%, where is their house going to be constructed? Is it going to be constructed in Mandera or Nairobi or Kisumu? So are you telling them that once their house has been constructed, they have to move to Kisumu? What is the, that's why I was introducing the issue of efficiency and equity insofar as, and equality insofar as attaining this tax bill is concerned. Two, is what are the modalities? Have you mapped up how many employees are there? Have you mapped up how long are you going to take? How many houses are going to be constructed? Which are the places you're going to construct the houses? If you're talking about job creations, who are the people who are, what is the ratio of the people who are going to be employed for this? What is the need? Have you mapped out that there is a need, and how are you going to address the need? Because there are employees who are, the employees who are paying mortgage at the moment, and then you're going back to them to tax them 3%.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't think the government has really thought through the finance bill in its entirety, not just excluding out the issue of the 3% housing levy. They've not really thought about it. Their intention could be good, but the history betrays them.
So maybe what I'm understanding is that there are a bit of loopholes that need to be addressed to make it better, or is it that the whole bill in itself is absolutely off? Because what you're also mentioning is that it's the ministry that is fronting this finance bill particularly, and not the National Housing Corporation. So is it that if they happen to join in, would it now make it all-inclusive? Would it make it as efficient?
For me, I can tell you 3 beautiful things that are in that finance bill. Because out of, I think, 108 pages, it's only 3 things that I can see that are good for Kenyans. One would be the removal of LPG, and together with fertilizer, the removal of the taxation on them. 2, it will be the issue of money transfer, mobile transfers, that they're going to reduce from 20% to 15%. And I think 3, I'm even struggling to remember the 3rd one. But when it comes to the things that are affecting citizens, there are so many, because they are imposing a burden on Kenyans that I think the government has not thought through. Let me give you an example. For instance, the government is saying that, through the Finance Bill 2023, that if KRA found you to be in default of paying taxes, and then they take you to their committee, and then let's say they're asking you to pay 14 billion. If the KRA's decision, you don't agree with KRA's decision, then you're supposed to be appealing to the tribunal, the tax tribunal. Now they are saying, before you make an application for appeal, you need to deposit 20% or an equivalent of the disputed amount. In law, we say that is double jeopardy, because one, you're being already prejudged guilty before exhausting the mechanisms. So to me, that is not fair, that is not equitable, that is not efficient. 2, they are saying, you see, the homeowners, now we have homeowners and then we have agents. They are saying the agents, the people who collect money on behalf of homeowners, they are going to be taxed, withholding tax. They're supposed to remit withholding tax within 24 hours. How realistic is that? What is the urgency in remitting tax within 24 hours? And now you're asking the agents to pay that. For me, I don't think the government has really thought through the implication of the finance bill, and I would want to see how members of parliament react to this. You know, at the end of the day, people really complain to the president, and they have even nicknamed him to be Zakayo because of imposition of taxes. But to me, I think the people who should be labeled that name are the members of parliament, because at the end of the day, finance bill is going to go to parliament, and now the house, as you've seen it, one wing is sort of stooges of the government. They're going to pass it either way. I've had sentiments of people in government saying, members of parliament from the government side saying they're going to pass it regardless of what happens. But I've seen the Azimio wing has said they're going to halt the bipartisan talks until the government withdraws this bill in entirety. What I want to see is a position whereby the government involves the people, so that we have inclusivity right from the point of drafting, so that you collect people's views to know what is really ailing the economy. At the moment, the government has not been able to sort out the issue of wastage that is going on in the public sector. If you've not been able to sort the issue of wastage, why are you saddling Kenyans with more taxes? The government withdrew from Kenyans subsidies that were there, in the fuel subsidies, for instance, consumption subsidies that were there. They were able to be withdrawn. But still, the government is borrowing, and it has projected to borrow 859 billion this year. We should be able to have seen the 200 billion that was removed from the subsidies having an impact in the finance bill 2023, so that we don't see the government going on an avalanche on trying to keep saddling and hurting the citizens with heavy taxation. What we say is that you cannot tax a country to prosperity. You cannot overtax a country to prosperity.
All right, all
Yeah.
right. And just to remind our viewers, you can reach us on our WhatsApp line with your comments, your questions, and your feedback on the same. We're talking about the Finance Bill of 2023. And the line is 0708 222 323. Our SMS line is 22232. Do reach out with your questions and your comments on the same. And also, Colin, just to get back on the same discussion, just to highlight some of the things that Kenyans would expect in case the bill is actually, the proposed bill is passed in Parliament. We have the income tax, which is a 3% increase on gross sales tax, among other things. We have the digital assets tax, which is the introduction of the same tax and a 3% levy on transfer charges during exchange of assets covering digital currencies, crypto, and non-fungible tokens known as NFTs. We have the withholding tax, which is 15% of payments made to digital content creators subjected to taxation. We have the housing fund, the 3% contribution from people's salaries. We have the VAT on petroleum products, which is an increase from 8% to 16%, and an 8% VAT on LPG, which is the exemption. We have the excise duty on artificial nails, wigs, human hair to attract excise duty at 5%. And certain firms will be obligated to instantly pay excise duty by the Kenya Revenue Authority. And touching on exactly what you have just said, we have digital content creators who the media, for example, has come out to defend this kind of taxation, saying it is going to discourage more young people from getting into this industry, if I can call it that way, because if they're seeing that 15% of the payment that was to be made by maybe an advertising agency is now going to go to the government. So would that be, what would that look like for content creators who would like to join this industry in the future and now, if it is proposed?
This government rode into power on the backdrop of being a hustler government, to mean that they supported, quote unquote, they support or they are pro the common citizens.
Right.
But if you look at the finance bill, just before I come to the digital taxation imposition, if you look at the finance bill in totality, it's actually going for the common person. It's really hurting the common person more. The beneficiaries of it, if there are any, I think they are the unemployed, because then most of those taxes are being lumped up on people who are employed and all that. For instance, the women in chamas, they're talking about chamas or circles or people who come together in associations for purposes of, you come together in an association or in a chama for purposes of putting money together or doing a merry-go-round as you know it, or you can do an investment. Now the government is going to tax those people. Two, the car owners, people, if you're owning a saloon car or a wagon or a lorry or a bus, now they are charging a tax of, they have a lump sum tax of, I think, 100 per seat.
Yes.
Or 5,000 annually,
annually,
and then they say whichever is higher.
Whichever is higher.
That is that's what that section says. Whichever is higher. So if you do your calculations, why would you charge for a passenger who is not using the vehicle? Finally, and I've seen today the Media Council, they were making their presentation in Parliament insofar as the finance bill is concerned, and they were lamenting about the issue of beyond even the housing fund, because they are equally employers. They're talking about the issue of digital content creators and to the issue of advertising, because now there's been an imposition of taxation on people who are doing betting, alcohol manufacturers, and I think cigarette manufacturers. So if you are running an advertisement, now they have imposed a taxation on those people, the media people, that they have to pay a tax for that, for running those adverts, or for revenues that they've collected, and then for betting companies, they have to be taxed on the monies that they put out there for people to win. We call it waging. The fee that has been set for the waging, they have to tax it. For digital content creators, the digital tax, it's a new concept that came, I think, in 2021. But people are yet to catch a grasp of it, yet to understand it, and yet to run with it. Because digital content creation, it's an economy that is still blooming in Kenya as it is right now. And that's why you see a lot of people posting paid partnership with this and this. Now the government is saying, if you're going to post to us that this is a paid partnership with so and so, then you're going to come after you and you're going to tax you. If there are any royalties that you're going to make in your digital content creation, then the government is going to impose taxation on it. And so you're wondering, people who they never had a niche, now that they've had to force themselves into the internet spectrum, the government is yet to, we're just coming from the backdrop of having enacted that Data Protection Act.
Yeah.
We're here to really test the Data Protection Act to see if there are still loopholes that exist in the digital space, so that the government can come and see how to equally tax it. So I want to really look at how the government first is going to register the digital content creators. Before you go for someone, you have to have registered those people.
Yeah.
You know, KRA has for the longest time been unable to realize its revenues, not just because of the modalities that they do it, because it's extraneous for Mama Mboga, for instance, to log online and to fill returns.
Yeah.
A lot of people are always going to fill nil returns.
Yeah.
And so they've been unable to simplify the filing of taxes so that they are able to realize the revenue.
Yeah.
So I want to see how they're going to identify this new market stream, which is the digital content creation market stream, so that they are able to tax it. I think it's going to be a lot of chaos insofar as that is concerned, because if today I post that I do interviews, for instance, I post that I appear on Hope TV and I do interviews, and part of it is I'm an advocate, because I'm selling myself. I'm an advocate, I'm an economist, like that. Am I able now to, are we going now to say that I'm a digital content creator, or I say now I'm an influencer because of coming here every time?
Yeah.
Now I've attracted a following, and now from my following, I can tell people, oh, if you want to watch the best news, you can go to Hope TV. So are you going to tax me because of that? Because I'm influencing people in a certain direction, and I fall in the spectrum of being a digital content creator. Then how do you come to first realize the people in that bracket? How do you then impose that taxation on that network? I think it's going to be a little chaotic, but I think the government is going really to hammer the media, people in the media, because they are known. The advertisements that they run, they are known. So the government has to ensure that before you run your advertisement, you have to pay first.
And considering the president just recently, when he went to file his own returns at KRA, mentioned there's a big technology gap in the taxman system. So
And
it means it's going to be a bigger problem, as if that's what you're saying. It's going to be a bigger problem to now go after the digital sea if they're going to come after creators.
And the president never helped it, because he went personally to fill returns at KRA, and it's done online.
Yeah,
so if you're complaining about the technology, you should be able to do it and demonstrate when you're doing that at State House.
Right.
Not to walk to KRA times towers, because Kenyans are not going to walk there.
Yeah.
Filling tax is done online. But I hoped when he went there, if you wanted to sensitize people on filling taxes, I hoped to see that he would have given amnesty for people to come out, the people who are defaulters. He would have pardoned people who have been defaulters, so that to give them a new list for them to start over. I thought I'd see more beyond just calling out people and talking that we would have a tax collection day or something like that, because people are paying taxes every day. There's VAT, there's a lot of ways that we keep paying taxes every day. So I thought I'd see more from the end of things to do with amnesties and things to do with pardoning people who are defaulters.
All right.
Yeah.
And does that also mean that would it mean that they would need to create a new law or a new act that would now govern the kind of tenets that you're talking about? For example, the kind of loopholes that you have already identified, yet it has not been enacted yet. Would it mean they would need to create new laws to now govern who is identified as a digital content creator, what kind of tax this is, or will it all be included in the finance bill?
Okay, so one thing about finance bill is that it in itself, it amends a raft of other bills. So for instance, you have the Income Tax Act that, for instance, for the longest time we've had VAT as this, or we've had income tax as this. So the new finance bill proposing an increase in income tax has to amend the Income Tax Act, for instance. Now you see, so we have a raft of other acts that the finance bill in itself, the effect that is being passed ultimately amends those acts. For instance, the issue of housing, the introduction of 3% housing tax is going to directly affect the Income Tax Act, you see. So we don't have to pass new legislation, but there are new novelties that are being proposed. I think, for instance, there was this thing about blood, I think something about racers, that they are proposing to impose taxation on the racers that you're contributing. So I think after donated blood, I think, and then there is being sold the racers, they're calling it racers, that they have to impose taxation on that. So for the new nonsense that have not been there before, I think out of it, resultantly, there are going to be legislation out of it that are going to now to take effect next year, January 1st. But the ones that are currently there, like the finance bill as it is at the moment, it seeks to amend a lot of existing legislations that are touching on taxation and levies.
All right. And also diving to the same, we've already seen, as you had also earlier mentioned, that the Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, had already, I don't know if I can say hinted or said that he has already been sort of pushed to already pass the finance bill. So does that put risk for Kenyans that even though there's public participation, it means that it's not going to result in anything? Or does that mean there's still a possibility that it could not pass because of course, you have the opposition and you have members of parliament who still do not agree, and countrywide officials, government officials, Kenyans at large, do not really propose or accept or assent to the finance bill?
You know, the most unfortunate thing is that at the end of the day, this is politics, as unfortunate as it is, because it's about the livelihoods of Kenyans. So I don't see a situation where the government is going to agree to it losing the floor of the House, because the finance bill not passing in Parliament means the government has lost. And so the president is not going to sit in a position where he's going to lose on his agenda. He has an agenda for Kenyans, so he seeks to attain that agenda through the Finance Bill 2023, and this is going to be his first budget through the Finance Bill. So I don't see a situation where majority members of Parliament who are in the government side are going to oppose this bill. I think most, if not all, are going to pass the bill. I think they're just going to tweak a few things, most likely with regards to the housing, 3% housing levy, but I don't think the poison is in the 3% housing levy. There are a lot of things that are passing through finance bill, but the housing levy is what has caught people's eyes. So I see a situation whereby they're going to amend that section. But if you've had conversations going on, they're saying that if you don't want a house at the end of the day, you're going to be able to withdraw the money after 7 years. Right. But then you're asking yourself, what structures have been put in place to see to it that I'm going to withdraw the money? And if I'm going to withdraw the money after 7 years, am I going to withdraw it with an interest? And if so, why don't I keep the money? Because I don't need the house at the end of the day. Why is it mandatory at the point of deduction and then optional at the point of owning, or at the point of now benefiting from what has been taxed? Right. 3, what is there for employers who don't want? It's like the employers aren't tied, because they're saying if you're an employee and don't want a house, after 7 years you can withdraw. What about the employers who've been pumping money into this, because they're equally being deducted? What about people who, spouses, they both work for government. The spouses are being deducted. So you're going to have 2 houses for yourselves together with the children if they are working for government. Right. So you see, there are a lot of things that I don't think the government has thought through. And the fact that they have people talking about it every right, left and center, majority from the government side talking about it without having grasped it, it makes it be more chaotic. Because then that's why I was saying this ought to have been fronted with NHC. NHC should have developed a way of just breaking down the numbers, telling us this is the unemployment rate. And who said if you have unemployment, you have to resolve the unemployment through creation of building houses. Right. There are other ways of solving unemployment. First, create an equal business environment for people. Remove there are a lot of licenses that are imposed on people for you to start up business. There are a lot of, I don't know, goodwill. There are a lot of taxes that are imposed on you. Remove those bottlenecks that are there that help, that make it impossible for people to be even creative and innovative. For instance, now you're introducing the digital tax, and you've not been able to do a sensitization on people. You've not done a public participation on the players in that sector. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think the government has really thought through. This was, I think it was rushed, or I think there are people from other quarters who need to get money from this. And finally, and I had, I think, the incoming CBK governor quoting Singapore and saying Singapore has imposed, and a lot of MPs have been doing that of late from government, quoting Singapore. Singapore imposed 20.3% tax, what they called provident tax. Out of that 20.3% provident tax, 12% was going to housing, 7% was going, I think, to health, and I think the other was going to transport or something like that. But you know, you cannot compare Singapore or other countries that are more taxed than us because of the services that they receive. You cannot compare the fidelity to their fiscal policy as opposed to ours. I know there's been talk on us servicing our debts and all that. There's been talk on people asking the government to default, and then we see what happens if we default, or in negotiation of those debts with the lenders. But at the core of it is that people don't trust the government as it is. You don't trust the government with your 3%, because one, the government has not demonstrated to us that there is available land, there is available resources for us to contract houses for you, there is available, and what happens in the next 5 years if this government doesn't come back? Who will give us back the 7%? Who will give us back the contributions that we've made that they are saying you can withdraw them after 7 years? And what is the guarantee that after 7 years, the situation is going to be better? How are you assuring us that after the creation of these houses, you are going to have solved the rural-urban migration, you're going to have solved the issue of the affordable housing, you're going to have ensured that there is creation of employment equivalent to the deduction that you're doing to the employees? So that's what I'm saying. I think the government needs to rethink this. At the end of the day, they have to have a finance bill to operate. They have to do that. But I think they need to review this in the light of the situation that you removed subsidies to Kenyans. So Kenyans should be able to see that their taxes are actually, they're actually reaping off their taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you be able to say that the finance bill, if it would be enacted and actually passes into a law, would it possibly be as a result of the lack of public participation by Kenyans who are literally unaware and living in oblivion of not keeping up and understanding and having knowledge of the finance bill and what it says? Or is it the government's initiative that actually needs to go out there to the streets and tell people and debunk exactly as what you're doing right now, and debunk to the people living in the rural areas who do not even understand English, some of them? Would you possibly say that it would be as a result of lack of Kenyans going out there to seek the knowledge, or is it the government's initiative to reach out to these people?
Let me tell you one thing. The government Parliament has been unable to pass a legislation for public participation. And the problem with that is that you don't have laid strategies or confines to define what is public participation. One would argue that since you elected members of parliament, they are your representatives. So if they participate, then they are doing public participation because they are doing that out of donated power that you've donated to them. That is one. Two, parliament can sit and invite stakeholders, and when they've listened to stakeholders, they go ahead and make their resolutions. We invited you at the end of the day. So we did public participation. Right. So there is no law that ties them to taking into consideration what you've told them. Though that is in the Constitution, there is no fidelity to that. We keep saying the issue that we have in Kenya is the issue of the problem of adhering to the rule of law. Because the Constitution talks about public participation, that we need to participate, but we don't have, and it invites Parliament to make legislation for that, but we don't have legislation that has crystallized what this participation entails. So as I've said, there are a lot of Parliament did an advertisement and asked Kenyans to bring memorandas, but it was just published on print. There are those who don't have accessibility to print. Yeah. So there are those who've been taking their memorandas, and those who've been taking their views to Parliament, the Committee on Finance, for them to be able to consider to be able to consider their opinions and impose them on to inform the debate that will be happening in the House. But that's why I started by saying I think this is going to be a test with the National Assembly to see if they really are the stooges of the government or they really stand with the people. And I think people have been rallying their members of parliament, calling them to tell them, stand firm and decide on this, don't oppose this. There are those who've come out, mostly from the opposition wing, saying they're going to oppose it when it's being presented in parliament. If it's going to pass, most likely it's going to pass because the government is the majority. If it's going to pass, I see a situation where people would run to court, mostly on the issue of the 3% housing levy, and court is likely going to halt its implementation with regards to public participation. But I think Parliament in its wisdom is going to make sure that it has cleaned the process so that it's not mad with controversy with regards to kicking off. Because you remember, during the tenure of Uhuru Kenyatta, he had introduced a housing levy. Yeah. But then people went to court, and court was able to halt that process and able to stop it. Another time, I think the president then, Uhuru Kenyatta, was proposing increase in income tax and increase in, I think, pay. On VAT, increase in VAT, people went to court and court halted that. So I see a situation where after it has passed, because there is that leeway, that is how the judiciary offers checks and balances to the legislature. After it has passed the legislation, you can move to court and argue that the content, or rather they argue that the product, which is going to be the Finance Act, is unconstitutional on a lot of facets that are not, a lot of facets that have not been ticked by Parliament when passing that legislation. So if it's going to pass, definitely there is so much uproar from everyone, whether regardless of political realignments, there is so much uproar with regards to the finance bill. So if it's going to pass, I think it's going to be members of parliament telling us in our faces, you don't matter.
Right.
But I hope courageous Kenyans can take this to court, or parliament, or the president can listen to the pleas of the people, most certainly with regards to the teething issues in the finance bill, or if we can have a session where they come and debunk. I saw State House invited PS Hinga to come and debunk the housing levy, and he did a shoddy job. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Collins, I wish you had more time to also debunk on his insights, because it did make rounds on social media when PS Chalzinga was debunking the housing fund. But thank you so much. We appreciate your wisdom and insights on the Finance Bill 2023. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You can continue to also engage us on social media on our WhatsApp line 0708 222 Our SMS line is 22232. We are live on YouTube. You can find us, and on Twitter at Hope TV Kenya. We take another short break, but we will be back with more updates, mainly in the county news and business, right after. Please do stay tuned.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
This week on Testify.
I bought samaki na nikapika. I had the voice telling me, don't eat the fish. But because nilikuwa na njaa, nikasema, no, I'm taking. Nikakula samaki. Kumeza samaki ya pili, bone ika stuck hapa. Bone ili stuck hapa for 4 days. Yani situation imekuwa ile hard, una urinal attraction, acidity, bone, nini. Yani you feel like the world is ending. Nikatoka job. So kutoka job, hiyo flyover ya Bellevue. I don't know whether you know Bellevue. Nikasimama hapo kwa flyover ya Bellevue. Nimeshika chuma hivi. Nilikuwa nataka kujirusha chini.
Only on Hope TV. Look and live. Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Spotlight.
Do you feel like they are in a place where they can effect a Barack Obama moment?
When you hear the word of God and you hear Jesus is speaking.
Real talk on real issues.
You know the Bible says faith without works is dead.
The truth of the gospel that will survive the time is not a health and wealth gospel.
When there is time to harmonize and bring one composite amendment.
With idealistic, thought-provoking guests.
So people come to be serviced, to be encouraged, to be empowered.
When the storm is over, you desire the closeness you have with God.
Hosted by Reverend Edward Furi.
Thank you for staying tuned. Now, members of the County Assembly in Siaya have supported a motion seeking to impeach their Deputy Governor, William Odwal, with 38 members voting in favor of the motion. East Assembly Ward Representative Gordon Onguru, while moving the motion, accused Odwal of gross misconduct, abuse of office and violation of the Constitution. Siaya County Governor James Orengo and his Deputy Odwal have been at loggerheads, with Odwal accusing Orengo of condoning corruption. Odwal has distanced himself from the allegations, expressing confidence in the evidence he presented against the Siaya County Executive.
Mr. Speaker, this Assembly resolved to impeach the Siaya County Deputy Governor, William Oduor under Section 32 of the County Government of Act 2012 and Standing Order 71 and 72 on the following grounds. 1. Gross violation of Constitution and other laws. And 1. Under it, interference with procurement processes through act of bid rigging. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Governor, William Oduor, interfered with the procurement of contracts for various road projects in the county, and that of supply and delivery of certified seed and fertilizer, contrary to the provisions of Section 47(1) of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015, which states that a procurement function shall be handled by procurement professionals whose qualifications are recognized in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, B, the Deputy Governor coerced the head of County Procurement Unit to give him raw evaluation report for the tender on supply and delivery of certified seeds and fertilizer, together with an unsigned professional opinion, despite being on dangers of exposing such document for a procurement process which had not yet resulted in final selection and award of tender. Mr. Speaker, sir, C, the Deputy Governor William Oduor unjustifiably relying on the authority of the Office of the Deputy Governor caused to be changed by coercion.
And residents of Mombasa County have called on their governor, Abdul Samad Nasir, to enhance smooth service delivery across public hospitals in the county. The residents, led by lobby group Voice of Mombasa, have also urged Governor Nasir to create a conducive environment for donors who wish to engage in health corporate social responsibility projects by removing bureaucracy barriers. The lobby group, chaired by John Walele, equally called on the county boss to engage in consultative meetings which allow public participation to avert any crisis affecting residents.
Na pia tunasema stop unpopular decisions without proper, adequate na meaningful public participation. Wajua katika Article 10 ya Katiba na Section 87 ya County Government Act ya 2012, wanga public participation ni muhimu sana katika maamuzi yoyote katika issues za governance. Na pia demand number 3 ni kwamba basi waike security measures, kwa sababu walikuwa wanasema ati wao wanakatishia wafadhili wasifanye kwa sababu kuna watu wana abuse hiyo avenue, wanaanza sasa ati kuextort pesa kutoka kwa watu. Waike mikakati katika hizi hospitali zetu ili mtu yote ambaye yuko pale tu yuko idle na anajaribu kukon watu wawe wanaweza kushikwa. Wananchi wamelalamika sana. Wewe una seek waiver kwa sababu una an immediate need ya sasa, lakini unaambiwa ati ngoja sijui kamati ikae, ngoja sijui 2 weeks, na pengine wewe wataka usaidiwe sasa kwa sasa. Sisi demand yetu waiver tu ishughulikiwe within 24 hours.
Kwa hiyo kwanza county government ya Mombasa imefeli kusaidia wananchi, na huyu mfadhili hakuanza leo. Fadhila hizi anazozifanya ameanza kabla yeye ni mbunge mpaka amepata ugavana. Mbona matatizo yalikuwa hayazungumzii toka mwanzo? Na hakuna sehemu ambayo imefaidika katika Mombasa hii kama county ya sehemu ya sub county ya Mvita. Leo ndio yaona matatizo. Kwa hiyo governor awe mkweli na waachilie, hii ni lazima awaachilie wafadhili wasaidie wananchi.
Kama kuna watu wametubwaga ni County Assembly ya Mombasa. Wamelala kabisa, hawapumui, hawakohoi. Wao ni pengine wakiona governor tu ni kumramba viatu. And that is wrong. Kwa sababu ukienda hata katika County Government Act Section 9 imeorodhesha yale majukumu yao. Wao ndio wafao link kati ya services na wananchi, lakini hata wengine hata mtaani hata hawaonekani.
Now, business news for today. Cab hailing service Yego Global has ventured into Mombasa County and its environs in a move aimed at revolutionizing urban mobility in the country with better terms for drivers and fair rates for passengers. Speaking during the launch of cab services in Mombasa, Yego Mobility Chief Executive Officer Karanveer Singh said that the company aims to address pain points of the driver community and passengers. The company has pledged to keep cab ride fares in line with the prevailing fuel prices and traffic situations and allow drivers to withdraw their earnings on demand with the actual processing fees. Yego Global has been operating in Rwanda since 2016, where it became the first licensee in Rwanda to provide a smart mobility solution using intelligent connected fare meters.
We've ensured that by having a 24/7 call center, we're able to ensure safety and security and human access to all passengers and drivers by charging the lowest commission and by making sure that the drivers can get their commission within 60 seconds of having finished a ride. I think we have a game changer. Most app companies have only one way of booking a ride, but we have three ways. You can call our call center, you can just step up to any Yego taxi and you can pair a ride. So you avoid the waiting time and the frustration of telling a driver where you are. And of course, you can use an app. So we intend to bring a lot of benefits into the industry, and we are really, really grateful for the kind of turnout that we have seen here.
And on to more regional news, Nigerian industrialist and Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, has opened Africa's biggest petroleum refinery, dubbed the Dangote Petroleum Refinery. The $19 billion facility is the first privately owned crude oil refinery in Nigeria and will produce 650,000 barrels a day, giving it the potential to address the country's energy supply crisis. The first product from the refinery is expected to hit the market by the end of July 2023. The refinery is expected to boost domestic refining capacity, get rid of the current consumption shortfall. Nigeria's existing refineries, plagued by operational inefficiencies under the government's control, have failed to meet the growing demand for petroleum products, hence the need for substantial imports. All right, and in the sports arena, Manchester United manager Eric Ten Hag says Captain Harry Maguire has a decision to make regarding his future at the club. The 30-year-old England defender made only 16 appearances in the Premier League for United this season. Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane have been Ten Hag's preferred centre-back, appearing in his first season in charge at Old Trafford. Maguire has made some costly errors this season, most recently in last month's 3-0 Europa League defeat by Sevilla. Maguire arrived at United in 2019 from Leicester for world record fee, and his contract runs until 2025. And the Miami Heat halted the Boston Celtics' remarkable fight back in the Eastern Conference Finals, clinching the deciding match 103-84 to reach the NBA Finals. Jimmy Butler starred, scoring 28 points, 7 rebounds and 6 assists as the Heat, who led the 7-game series 3-0 before being pegged back to 3-3, reached this year's showpiece. The Heat will play the Denver Nuggets in the best-of-7 finals. Game 1 will be played in Denver on Thursday this week. That concludes our bulletin for today. My name is Tiffany Mboy. You have been tuned in to Newswatch on Hope TV. Do stay tuned in for these and more programs coming up next, where you look and live.